Hi, Steve Isham here. Got an old print of Lamport Hall, which is the estate in the countryside of Northamptonshire, where Mrs. Tynan and her friend drove me that day in the early 70s when I visited the town of Isham. And there I was introduced to Sir Gyles. And Sir Gyles is an interesting man. He, when I met him, seemed the quintessential English gentleman, and in fact his appearance matched his reputation. I'm looking at an obituary. He was prominently an actor, but had many attributes. Maybe not quite a Renaissance man, but certainly someone who could have pursued a great number of paths in life. Very interested in acting. He was a member of the Oxford University Dramatic Society, played a lot of Shakespearean roles, Hamlet, Hotspur, Hector, various things. He had a reputation for a prodigious memory, could remember lines, some huge number of lines in Greek for a play that he participated in. Shakespearean parts at Stratford. In one point he had a Hollywood contract and played opposite Greta Garbo in Anna Karenina, and maybe suffered the fate of a lot of stage actors who were gifted and competent but did not come off well in film. He seems wooden in the Anna Karenina part. He left off acting, was part of the London Irish Rifles, and at the end of the war in 1946 he had achieved the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Had many posts. For example, he was a trustee of the National Portrait Gallery. Anyway, I wasn't aware of any of these attributes and distinctions when I met him, and he was busily involved in restoring the family estate, Lamport Hall, which had fallen into some disrepair, and he was restoring it, restoring the artwork, restoring the building, and all of this with the intentions of it becoming a trust, a private trust, rather than a national trust, which meant that it would retain, it would be endowed with monies so that it could be retained with all its original artwork and features. And on the day that I was there, he was very hospitable, but in the midst of things, organizing a little soiree, a little concert in one of the rooms, and at the same time had a young man who was valuing the artwork as part of the process for setting up the trust. And I eventually had a lift when I'd finished my time that afternoon, had a lift with this young man in his XK Jag with the top down, my backpack strapped to the back, and he took me to the nearest town when I left. But the place was interesting. One of my favorite pieces was a sideboard that featured the story of Jonah in two paintings, and I've actually reproduced that myself in an oil painting and modified it um, interpreted it, and also I've also done a poem that reflects that same piece of art. But there were some works of considerable value, including some Van Dyck's. Here's a postcard with a Rini painting, the Adoration of the Shepherds. So that's one of the Lamport treasures. There's quite a number, including portraits of previous baronets. At the time, Sir Gyles was actually living in the little rectory across the street from Lamport while Lamport was being restored. I've got a couple of other pictures here. There's a bookmark, Lamport Hall with the swan, which is part of the coat of arms. Lamport Hall booklet and a little inside picture of the side view, including the folly, which was a fashionable thing if you didn't have a ruined castle on your estate, where you built one for the romance of it. The picture here of Sir Gyles that gives you a pretty close idea of how he looked when I met him. Got a couple of other postcards of Lamport Hall. And here's the library where he set me down with a book that I'd like to talk a bit more about. One of his attributes or skills was being able to translate Latin. And the book was a Latin diary kept by his ancestor in the 1600s. And so I'll say a little bit more about that in the next video.